Chapter 6 Tyron, June 13th, later that night, on their return. I don't understand. You took a year to defeat Ooze and a mere 5 months to kill Baby Bouncer? Nick quizzed. We got lucky. I don't like to phrase it like that, but that is the case. I first spotted him 2 months before he and his army were prepared to fight. At least this way we should have a break before any more trouble. Just then the skies turned an eerie red color that Doggy pointed out. That is a peculiar sky, even in this strange world, King acknowledged. Birds began circling the sky like they were in search of prey. Doggy tried talking to the birds in some foreign language, but they did not seem the least bit interested in this and failed to respond. I asked them if anything was wrong, but they didn't answer, said Doggy, appearing very concerned. A great shadow of wings cast on the ground from above them. Doggy and the others looked up in horror as a winged dragon flew towards them and swooped down. King grabbed Doggy and Nick before jumping in a pit that was created from Baby Bouncer's shake. Sconatach hid in a furthest pit ahead of them. It's a surprise attack, King alerted. The dragon blew fire and rage, but continued his way towards town. Following it were the birds, but they appeared to be miniature dragons on closer examination. They're not birds at all, but how have they come into this world? King pondered on the thought. Questions filled King's head. How is it this creature has come back so soon after Baby Bouncer's defeat? If this is the next strange leader, it's not fitting with the time. We can't stay here. Let's make haste towards town. They'll be after our people, King announced. Downell was the one-horse town that was closest to the research facility. They were sure to get some answers, or even the path of destruction if the winged creature came by them. It turned out he had not threatened this place at all, and according to the people, never even been here. Of course, not to alarm the people, King worded it as if they saw any trouble. Well, no one said they saw anything unusual, so King took it to mean a great fire-breathing dragon had ripped through their town. Where would they have gone? Nick asked. King thought it was odd. Their friend had been with them for a year, and knew full well the book he was carrying around was a way back to his land, any time things got too much. For the moment, though, King was happy he had stayed. He could, too, learn a lot from Doggy. Let's just go back home. It could be another 2 months before this thing actually decides to fight, King said aloud, as if to say, if you want a war, bring it on. It was already dark, and Doggy thought about what he said to his mother about not being away for so long. He thought she would already start to worry. They made a long journey home back on their horses, who looked as frightened as they were. King made a joke about how thunder would be like in all this excitement. Eladnytort was the name of the town Doggy lived now. Their grandmother lived alone, retired, in a home just a few blocks from them. As Nick was walking, he tripped over something, like a pole. King had with him a flashlight and shone it on the object. It was a lamppost that had fallen. I might be reading too much into this, but lampposts don't fall on their own, Doggy noted. Sconatach began scaling the town hall, the largest building in the suburb. He looked down on the streets below, and from a distance, something caught his eye. There's an ambulance, by the old playing field, Sconatach reported. Doggy kicked his horse into motion and led it to the site by the ambulance. King and the others followed but kept a distance from Doggy, who looked horrified. The young savior jumped off his horse and ran to the paramedics. A figure lay on the stretcher, with a cover hiding their identity. Police were also at the scene and moved Doggy and his friends away. If you've been evacuated from your houses next door, we'll let you know when it's safe to return. But until then, keep away from this scene, the police responded. Doggy could not speak. He was choked in tears. The boy lives a few blocks away. This is his grandmother's house, King answered on Doggy's behalf. I'm sorry to hear that, but King, I think it is best you all go home now. A post-mortem will be carried out within the next week, so just give this some time. King adhered to the advice and took Doggy to one side. We need to give them some space. I will get you a cab home, and I can take their horses back myself. I know this is upsetting, but you have to stay strong. I will get everyone together, and we should hold a meeting next week. We can beat this, Doggy. You mustn't lose faith. King spoke as if the fight could never be a victory, but a means to stay alive. Had evil got the best of them? Doggy was a target for evil because he fought against it. Now he wondered if it was worth it. The meeting, June 22nd, 1994. King entered the main door to the old church hall. Much had been untouched, but somehow the place looked like it had long been used for something else. It was accessed by a ladder, hidden below a manhole. The manhole was an open field and found by accident when Harvester was working on the day. It was reported to King back in 1765, and since then the place was kept in absolute secrecy. The grass around it was left to grow, and the site now is only marked by coordinates on a map. King took his place at the front of the hall, overlooking the people below. I call this meeting to address the issue of a new strange leader. We have called him Tyron. King looked down at the people. To his right were the many supporters of King's battle, including the strange saviors. To his left were the familiar faces who opposed King's methods, including Ian McKenna. It was Ian who spoke up amongst them. "A new strange leader. Presuming this comes a week after the last one. How come it is? There have been numerous sightings of that green leader we had last year. I've heard these stories. It is thought to be the few of his remaining army, but that was a few weeks after his death. There is no need for concern now." King picked up a small glass of water and took a sip just as Ian spoke up again. "But we are not talking about a few weeks later. These claims have come back, and they were not the little beasts of his army you speak of." King looked out amongst his people, feeling the sooner he could swing the conversation round, the better. If anything Ian said held some truth, it might have been worth the listen. "This is the first time I have heard these rumors, so I cannot comment on that. I will say, on a positive note, for those of you who have not met or not acknowledged Nick as a new member of the Strange Saviors, and he is here with us today. Nick, could you please come up here?" Nick sat out in the front row of benches with Doggy Dog and Sconatach. Doggy urged Nick to step up to the platform where King was standing. Nick sat up from his seat and stood by King, looking over the many intimidating faces. "For many counts of bravery and continuous assistance, it is with great honor to welcome Nicholas into the special elite group. The lineup may have changed over the years, but rest assured, I have chosen the few who can bring peace where there's been anarchy," King went on to say. He felt reluctant to tell the group where Nick was actually from. There were times when Nick was sure would get a mention, but did not. "I would like to thank those who attended Doggy's grandmother Lou Smith's funeral last Monday. A brave soul we shall miss dearly. Meeting adjourned." The meeting was adjourned, and by the end 3 more of Ian McKenna's people had moved to the benches supporting King. It was only a matter of time, King thought, before they would have the complete confidence of everyone. King, Nick, Doggy, and Dog remained while the rest of the people left discreetly through the manhole above. A janitor with white overalls appeared in the hall, pushing a cleaning trolley. "Meeting's all packed up, Joe. Thanks again for your help," King mentioned. "You couldn't tell them about Nick's existence, King. You fear Ian, but you needn't fear much longer. He's losing his people, and the few that remain are only in fear of leaving. They will soon wake up to the fact there is no reason to doubt you. You have forgotten the trouble it was to find Ann Templeton, but you knew something would be very wrong if you hadn't. Nothing's changed, King, except for the better." Joe went on about his work and entered a storage cupboard, leaving King with a bit more reassurance. King and the others exited the church hall and went above ground. "I dare to think what that beast of a dragon has in store for us next," Doggy uttered. "Who is this Ann Templeton the janitor mentioned?" asked Nick. "A strange leader. I'd almost forgotten. That was 3 years ago now, but it seems far from a memory I can revive. She cannot recall any events of her transformation, and so exists the life of a frightened girl," replied King. Just then Anne Brown appeared. She had been waiting in the back row on the supporting benches earlier at the meeting. "It was a great speech, King. I'm glad things are working out for you." Mrs. Brown turned to her sons. "I have my car. I can take you both home." Doggy and Dog agreed and walked out to the car parked away from the field. Nick said his goodbye and closed the book, but vowed to return in a week or so. July the 1st, 1994. I decided to return as I guessed I should. Though I liked the solidarity that the strange world offered, I wondered sometimes if I should do more to convince my family that such a place existed. Except it was true to say, seeing was believing with this one, something the book never allowed outside of its owner. I tried many times to bring things back to my world from the strange lands, but it never worked. The last time I tried to bring over one of King's famously cooked dishes, it got lost in the transition. This scenario did work in reverse, but there was little to provide of use to the others. The book was the only exception. It could follow me, even though much of it was found on the odd planet. Nick made his way out of the woods and around to King's home. King was riding Sky around the grounds of his cottage. "So you are back, Nick. We have made a great discovery in the time you were gone. Those appearances of so-called ooze back at the meeting turned out to be just that. What makes it all the more interesting is he was not out to attack us. He doesn't know of his previous life, but speaks as if he was a lost monster to a strange leader. That was the link. He was assumed to be what we knew as Muck during Ann Templeton's reign. A similar monster patrolled the molasses swamp that surrounded her old shack. All the monsters had disappeared when the Queen was finished. For the first time, we could get close enough to prove his origins are from that very swamp. So much has come back to me." King was content in his mood, and it was clear a week had changed everything for the strange world. "They will not fight with us, but are supporting us in the fight. This must be their ultimate weakness. I shall wait and see if Baby Bouncer is found the same way," King added. "I bring news myself, King. Are you aware that a page is missing from the book? I stumbled upon it by accident. There are a lot of pages." "Yes, I had almost forgotten when you first came to light. The page was on my half of the book then. The great library was invaded. They tore the place apart looking for the other half of the book. I guessed the missing page was enough for them. If only the page was still here. With the book complete, One of us most certainly could have made it back to your world. I'm just glad it hasn't hindered your ability to come over here in any way, Nick. It must still be out there, King. Don't lose hope. You're a great influence, Nick. I want to do a little experiment. You seem unable to bring anything back from our world. Bring a sheet of paper next time you get the chance, and we'll see if a written note makes it back. Nick was amused by this idea and went on to explain about a holiday they had where he was from, where in 3 days' time they celebrate their Independence Day. King was happy for it to take place, and Nick returned with some fireworks to have the night go off with a bang on the 4th of July. It was a moment to unite all the people in the world they had built themselves. Even the likes of Ian McKenna could laugh away the differences he shared. Of course, there was always eyes peeled for trouble, and on one particular night, December the 6th, everything had changed. December the 6th, 1994. King and the others were in the town of Hawaii patching up the craters of Baby Bouncer's destruction. He's been through everywhere. It's a wonder that Baby didn't wreck most of the civilized town, Doggy commented. The skies began forming the eerie reddish color just as they had on the first sighting of Tyron. The other appearances never brought the change in the sky, which made it all the more concerning. It's happening again, Nick exclaimed. Just stay close, and remember, Tyron must be the main target, for he is likely to cancel the effect of the other miniature dragons. This, King thought, would be the climax to the evil that was Tyron. Instead, only Tyron's army appeared, and they made a swoop for Doggy and the others as they jumped in the crater they had nearly filled. This is too close a call. I want out of here, Dog moaned. They're heading for Nisnoxir, probably after some innocent lives like grandmother. Just like grandmother, Doggy repeated, at the sudden realization of what that implied. The saviors untied Lightning from a railed fence nearby and chased after Tyron's army of dragons. Doggy, wait! You're going straight towards the towering cliffs. Doggy! King shouted out for one last attempt to turn him back, but he could not be heard. Get your horses, guys. We're going after them, affirmed King. So as Sky, Thunder, and Scontatch's horse, known only as Straw, they chased after Lightning and their worried friend. Finally they stopped, after a long and treacherous journey led them back to the familiar, towering cliffs. Doggy stood with his back turned to his friends and faced the cliff's edge. Doggy, step away from the cliffs, King ordered. Dog cowered in the ditch watching over his brother and the others. The dragon army had all dispersed, King. They know the fight is over. Doggy uttered the words that would go horribly wrong, as Tyron rose from beneath the cliffs, spread his wings to show his might and power. Doggy drew his sword, but it was whisked away from his hand by Tyron just as soon as it left its holster. King was fighting off the miniature dragons as they suddenly appeared from the cliffs to add to the trouble. Doggy emerged from the ditch and threw his sword in Doggy's direction. Doggy picked it up and turned to face the dragon. This savior held out the blade as soon as Tyron emitted fire from his open mouth. Doggy refused to let go as the sword reached extremes of heat, made only bearable by the adrenaline Doggy felt inside. He took a swing at Tyron but missed. The savior looked back into Tyron's red eyes as he held onto the sword like a baseball bat. With all his might, he swung his sword for a second time, jarring the dragon directly in his right wing and sliced it with ease from the burning sword. Tyron flapped both wings, frantically trying to gain height but failed as the wind could no longer catch it. Like an injured bird, he fell from the sky and spiraled down the long drop below the cliffs. The other miniature dragons followed him, but they did not seem to be affected from the death of their leader. And Doggy wondered if Tyron really was dead. The savior looked down at the sheer drop that held nothing but blackness and a faint white fog below. Do you think he's dead, King? He questioned. His army followed him as if by choice. Maybe they will regroup and attack later. I don't know, Doggy. I really don't know. I think we should assume it was a victory, unless he should appear again and bring harm. But if that time should come, you'll be ready, and from the courageous act of your brother, so will Dog. King replied, Let us return home now. I think it is about time another member of the Brown family gained some recognition. King finished. Before they left, the eldest savior took Nick's blank paper, and as suggested, he wrote a message before folding it up and handing it back to him. Nick closed his book once more on the promise to return after his holidays. Time would soon prove if they had beaten yet another strange leader.